What is going on, everybody? I hope you are doing good. Let's try and get the streams together. We are, I think, hopefully live on all the platforms. Let me double check really quick because I know there's a delay from what y'all are seeing. Let's try it once more. Here we go. Here we go. Like you're stealing my tablet 'cause I'm drinking for two. All right. Okay, we are back. We had a little snafu on the technologies, but I think we're working. I'm double checking the platforms, and I think everything is good to go. So, in case you totally missed it, we are going to do a Prove Me Wrong. Have you guys seen the meme? I made it as the thumbnail, so maybe you saw that when you clicked on the notification. But, there's the meme of the guy in the park with the table, and he's got the sign that they put whatever funny saying on that says, Prove Me Wrong. Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. And I want to prove you right or wrong. Let's see if you can prove me wrong. Let's have a healthy debate about the current state of the market. People that are, especially first-time buyers. I mean, this episode is really going to be focused more towards our first-time buyers, the younger demographic that's never owned a home, or even older. I mean, I've helped people in their 60s that have also not been able to buy a house, because I'm finding a lot of people right now are feeling discouraged. They're honestly paying a lot of attention to what's in the news, what's on their social media feeds, what interest rates are doing, what prices are doing, what inflation's doing, what all the things swirling around are saying. And a lot of that, I think, has a lot of people discouraged. So they're thinking they can't buy a house. How are we supposed to afford the prices with the rates where they are and with, everything like it is? And so, all in all, I want to dispel a few of those myths for you tonight. So that's the goal. So I need you be active with me, if you will. Give me some chit chat in the comments. I want to see what you guys are thinking. If you are, what are you? Maybe it's not even you. Maybe there's somebody in your life that is thinking about buying a house, but they don't think that they can. They're not sure. If now's a good time, if they're worried about rates, if they're thinking their rates are going to go up, they're going to go down, all that good stuff. I wanted to dispel a lot of myths for you today. So let's get started. I'm going to start you off with let's talk about kind of what the market is doing in general, all right? So I'll screen share at you. Hopefully you can still see and hear me just fine. Let me know in the chat where you guys are watching from, because I really appreciate that, knowing if I'm talking to local Minnesota people or people moving from around the globe. I got a call from a guy in Ireland this week, Tyler. So shout out to those guys. Thanks for calling. I guess this little experiment is going international now, all the way to Ireland. So let's look at what the Twin Cities sale prices are doing first of all. So this is that rolling 12-month number. I'll switch to the monthly in a second, but you can see year over year we're up from 362.5. That was last month. Let's go all the way back here, of course. Let's see, January last year, 340,000, and this year we're at 365. So we're up 7.4% on that rolling year-over-year number. I personally kind of I look at both, but I like to look at this number. What this is show you, it's not the 12-month average between everything. It's just exactly what the sale price was last month, true to that month, not an average over the months. So let's take a peek at that. If we're looking at that number, I think this is actually going to be a better representation of exactly what our sale prices are. So 1 year ago, we were at 333. This year, we're at 342 from January. So 12 months later, in any case, you can see we're up 2.7%. That is an incredibly encouraging number for me. So 2.7% up. Well, if you rewind previous years, it was up like 11%, 9%, and now we're only up 2.7. That's a great number, because honestly, we don't want that number to be too astronomical. We really need that number to hover more around the 3 to 4%, which is the historic average. I think it's on like 3.6, I heard specifically. So That's the normal inflation trend of real estate at all times anyways. We've just been going up way more than that, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that number over the last few years. There's the pandemic. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't know if we need to rehash, but prices have been going up, right? So first of all, the fact that we're only up 2.7%, I think is fantastic. That's actually better than average as far as sale price numbers are concerned. And so I'm really, really happy and encouraged to see that. Does it mean that the market is crashing? I no, I mean, I don't think so. I don't really like to try and predict because let's be honest, none of us have a crystal ball. And if I say one thing and something else happens, people are gonna be like, ah, see, this guy was roasting me, trying to on YouTube, saying that I was pumping the market by giving him market data. I'm like, I'm just telling you the numbers, buddy. Like, I don't know what you expect from me. In any case, I don't anticipate that we're gonna go down. Even because of with this number, January's, as you can see, is typically that lowest number, November, December, January. And so with December, January being our lowest numbers, from here we're going to keep going up. And so it'll be a matter of how high do we go up over the hotter summer months where things are more active, more competitive, and then how far do we go down. Of course, we're going to go up from here into the summer months when demand is increasing, but we'll see what happens in the second half of the year with this number here to see if we go down from here. Okay. The second thing, let's look at month supply of inventory. So this is, let me go back to that rolling 12 months for you. So let's zoom out all the way. Okay. This was the big boom and bust of the last go around. Then everything popped and dropped, and our market, the further down it goes on this graph, I'm sure you guys can't read the numbers too specifically, but as we go down on this graph, the more of a seller's market we are, the higher we go on this graph, the more of a buyer's market we're in. And then 6 months, which is kind of this middle line here, that's about a balanced market. It never stays in a balanced market, so don't hope that we're just going to buy at the perfect peak time. Like that doesn't exist. But we can see that this is trending backwards, and I really, really like to see that number. It does keep kind of clicking back up for us a little bit. It's not terribly fast or significantly, but all in all, this is really good. This is also another thing that's really encouraging for us to see. So we're at 1.6. You can see that's obviously less than a third of the month supply that we would like there to see. So this is something that I think in a much more ambiguous kind of way people will point to and be like, hey, this is why it's a bad time. This is why we can't buy, is because of, it's still a seller's market. Well, it is. However, it's also not nearly as bad as it was a year or two ago. Rates were better, but it was also a lot more competitive. And so we're not seeing nearly as many competitive of properties, multiple offers, like we did a couple years ago. So that's where we're at generally as far as month supply of inventory. So let's take a break from the market stats. Let's go back to the topic of the evening. And if you're just tuning in, hey, welcome. I'm on Facebook and YouTube, so I'm going to be trying to moderate the chat as we go. I want to know your comments. I want to know your questions, concerns. What do you think is going on in the current market? I think I'm getting the feeling, maybe it's just from like the noisy minority, whatever it is, but I'm getting a lot of people that are commenting on YouTube and different places, and they're saying, well, prices can never keep going up because rates are too high, right? Well, that's factually inaccurate, but it's what somebody thinks, right? Or nobody's going to be able to buy a house because prices are too high, or nobody can afford an average price home with rates like they are, with wages where they are, right? I had a big debate with somebody that they were upset with me that I said I hope that wages go up because prices aren't coming down, and he was taking that to mean like, well, I don't want prices to come down, Anyways, there's a whole lot of that type of mindset and mentality that's been going around. And so that's the whole point of tonight's live. It's actually not to do a market update. We'll give you some of that as well, because I know you guys like to know specifics on what's going on. But I want to know, what are you hearing? Maybe not for you, maybe somebody else that you've been hearing. I'm thinking on TikTok, impressions. You're thinking maybe you want to buy your first house, but you don't know, and you're feeling nervous. So that's what I want to know. I want to know in the comments. I want you to let's have a little debate, right? Prove me wrong, just like my little meme thumbnail. Hopefully you guys saw that. Prove me wrong that you can buy a house in the next 5 years. And then I'm going to go deep dive into specifically what I would do if I was buying my first house. So I think it'll be a fun night for you. But I need you guys to interact. There's a bunch of people watching. Everybody's just spectating, which is cool. I get it. But I would love for you to comment. Where are you watching from? And how are you feeling about the market? First-time buyers, do you feel like you could buy a house or you can't buy a house? Or is there something that's keeping you from being able to realize that dream for yourself? Not for myself, but... So let's get back into a couple more things I think we will hit you with on the market updates, just so you guys have a little more knowledge so that you can, be prepared when that time's right for you. So let's talk about days on market. Now, would this be easier if I make this bigger for you? Probably about the same, I guess. But all right, so this is days on market. This is looking back to 2007, and this is the rolling 12-month average is what you're looking at here. So for the sake of today's conversation, I'm just going to keep it simple with this one. We're at 14 days on market. So what does that mean? It means when a property goes after coming soon status, once it's truly active, how long does it go until it goes under contract? 14 days is the median in the Twin Cities right now. I will switch it to the average. I don't know what the statistical benefit of one or the other is. The average is technically 32. Both of those are up. I don't really give much for the average. I think the median is a better representation of what I'm seeing and feeling, boots on the ground with my offers and stuff. So about 2 weeks is how long it'll take for a property to go under contract. Now, you got to still look at this graph here. We were really competitive all of last year and the year before. I mean, really for the past few years, it's been really competitive. So we have actually gone down in our days on market, which seems backwards to what people would think. We went down, basically stayed flat through the summer, and then it's been slowly rising since the summer of last year. So slowly rising, I mean, literally only 3 days on market that it's come up. So it's not, there's no sky falling, right? If all of a sudden, everything was just collapsing or whatever dramatic word the media wants to use, we would be seeing this number spiking. Even if you look at previous, that was the big major recession before 2008, 9, 10. The number of days on market shifted very significantly and quickly. We're not seeing that one. We're not seeing that at all here. So I like to see this number going up because it's not just, I don't necessarily want my sellers to have their home on the market for longer, but I do want my buyers to be able to think about it a little bit more and breathe and take their time just a tiny bit and maybe even see the home for a second showing, and really make an educated decision without being rushed. So we like days on market going up. It provides more balance, and obviously a lot of our buyers are also selling, and so that kind of greases the wheels for everything because then if they feel more comfortable with buying, they'll go ahead and list their home. If they list their home, then there's more homes for sale, higher supply of homes, and so that'll balance out the demand because right now we have a lot of demand. So overall, I'm really encouraged by the numbers, right? Like there's part of me where I'm analyzing the data and I'm going like, this is great, this is great, this is great. Our days on market is ticking up just a little bit. Our month supply is ticking up just a little bit. Our sale prices are not going down, but they're at least, only going up a little bit. I love all those numbers and I'm feeling good, right? And I'm just sitting here kind of feeling good about the market. And then all of a sudden someone will say like, well, no one can buy a house because interest rates are so high. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like a lot of people are buying houses. And we're actually at 7% is the 30-year average. And so, okay, we don't want them to go back to what it was, right? But when you factor in, I should have brought it up. I don't know if I can find that graph for you on the fly, but there's what's called the affordability index. And it's now getting less affordable, like in the last year or so. I probably haven't looked at it for years, so I don't want to quote it too closely. But we had been extremely affordable for quite a while, for the past several years. And then what's interesting is even, rewind like 2 years ago when interest rates were like 3%, right? Buyers were still at that time like, it's a terrible time to buy. There's too much competition. Prices are going up too high. I'd never pay that price. And it's like people were just like pessimistic and negative about everything, even though prices were the lowest they've been in ever, And so I think it's funny now, at least being in the business for 7 years coming on, I can at least zoom out a little bit and be like, all right, people in general are just built to be pessimistic, and they're always going to be fed the negative side of everything from social media and from the news and everything else on TV. And so I think that's the default that our brain goes into, kind of mechanism of, oh, well, what about this? What about this? What if that happens? What if this goes on? Oh, I don't have as much money as I make. I wish I made more money. I think I deserve to make more money. Prices are high. I hear about inflation. And so they kind of go into a defensive mode. The reality is, I think you're okay, and I think the vast majority of people that want to buy a house are capable of buying a house. So that's the whole topic of conversation tonight. I appreciate you being here. Let me know in the comments if you would. We're on Facebook and YouTube live right now. I'm only going to be going live for maybe another 15, 20, 30 minutes if it really gets lively. So I want to know your questions. There's no time for you to just sit there and watch. I want to know what you're hearing. I want to know the sentiment that you've seen if you know somebody, or maybe you yourself are thinking about buying your next house or your first house this year, next year, coming up sometime. As you're brainstorming, what kind of things are you concerned with? Rates, prices, Convince me that I'm wrong that you could buy a house in the next few years. I put 5 years in the comments, to be honest. I had it as 3 years. I was like, okay, there's going to be somebody with some really weird, obscure, life event that they've got $500,000 in medical bills or something that they can't pay off and they're disabled. So I don't know. Like, okay, I'm sure there's like some obscure sliver of 4% that couldn't buy a house in the next few years, but honestly, you're killing me, Smalls. Okay, so that is the topic of conversation for tonight. I think without further ado, we've been 15 minutes in. We've got plenty of people on, and I wanted to kind of do this fun sort of role play. So here's what I'm thinking. I mean, not role play, that's maybe the wrong word. Let's pretend, I want to pretend like I am brand new first time buyer. I'm in my maybe, mid 20s or something, younger 20s, and I'm thinking I want to buy a house, right? Let's pretend, for example, that I have basically no money, not a lot of cash. I have a very entry-level job. May or may not have a college degree, but we'll just assume I don't for the time being. And let's say I'm living in my parents' basement, okay? Parents' basement. Well, okay, that's not fair. Let's say I'm renting right now. And let's say rent is $1,500 a month, right? Somebody I was just talking to said there was $1,400 a month. So what would I do if I was that person starting out brand new, low income, no cash, renting, and I wanted to buy a house with a, let's say making $40,000 a year, right? Which is excuse me. Oh, I should have filled up my water before I turned on the live stream. Uno momento. Sorry. So what would I do if I was in those shoes? So number one thing that I would tell you guys is, first of all, if you don't have a solid income, you just don't have options, okay? And so I'm not terribly concerned about your cash in the bank situation, but I do want you to have a really good income, because that's kind of like the gasoline for this whole fire we're trying to build here. So number one thing is, I see so many people that are like, I'm in this job, I don't have a lot of money, I can't, save up very much for my down payment and stuff. Or they're just like, well, wages aren't going up fast enough, so my boss isn't paying me more, so I can't save up to buy a house, or I can't buy a house, something, right? The thing is, there are so many employers in the Twin Cities right now. Here, we're just gonna do this live on camera right now. Let me switch screens for you. Here we go. All right, we're just gonna pull this up. So this is literally on the fly what I would do if I was in your shoes. I'm gonna go search for jobs in the area, and I'm going to say hiring immediately. That'll be our criteria in the Minneapolis area. And I'm going to say salary estimate. Okay, first of all, look at how many postings are out there. 1,200 jobs hiring that are at least $40,000 a year, another 1,000 at $45,000 plus a year. So I'm just going to go hit $45,000 a year. Get out of my face here. And let's say no experience required. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. No experience required. You can make $45,000 a year. Fence post installer. That seems pretty easy. You can make between $25 and $50 an hour, and you need no experience. Okay, go do that. You want to do a school bus driver? That's a fairly easy job. You only work, what, I don't know, 9-10 months out of the year or something. Bam. You can go do that. You can start at $25 an hour. It's paid weekly. They're hiring urgent. They're looking for multiple candidates. Oh, and look right here. You get a $2,500 sign-on bonus for being a bus driver. Now you're saying, Joe, I don't want to be a bus driver. You know what? I don't even care. I don't care. Like, if my goal is I'm going to buy a house, then I'm going to take whatever freaking job I can get, and I'm going to go work that job, and I'm going to be the best darn bus driver that there was. Okay, and I'm 100% serious. This is very similar to what I did when I started my career. So there you go. All right, you don't want to do that one. Go deliver. $1,500 sign-on bonus. Lakeview Delivery. You can make $200 to $210 a day full time. They're hiring urgently. Easily apply. Oh, FedEx Ground. Okay. Who can't go drive a FedEx truck? Drive around, throw a package, you drive around again, you throw another package. It's not rocket science, right? And you can go do that, and you can get a $1,500 sign-on bonus for that. Warehouse order selector. I don't even know what that means. Warehouse package handling. Lots of warehouse people, apparently. Cool. Garage tech. Garage door installer. Here we go. $23 an hour. I hope you're getting the point. Look here. You can go window cleaning technician for squeegee magic. That's hilarious. $20 to $35 an hour. Monday through Friday, working urgently. Wages, $20 to $25 per hour plus tips. Training wages even, okay, you can get your training wages, $18 an hour. Okay, here's the point. Why am I telling you all this? Because the number one thing I would tell somebody looking to buy the first house that feels like money is tight is just go get a better freaking job. There's literally no reason that I see that you should be flipping a burger at McDonald's when you can make this kind of money. So let's, I want to do this really quick. What is this an hour? Or was this I don't even know. I haven't had a salary in 7 years. All right, let's go back to this. I like school bus driver job, right? All right. $25 an hour, that's $52,000 a year. You can go be a school bus driver, so that one looks like the best one to be. Excuse me. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a better job. You can, I actually just did a video on this. It's going to come out, I think, in the next couple of days. Oh, excuse me. But I basically walked a guy through a similar scenario. So you're going to go to your current employer. You're going to say, look, I need to make more money. I am working my butt off. I'm coming in early. I'm staying late. I'm doing everything to exceed your expectations. So I either need a raise or I'm going to have to go look for a better job. Your boss will either give you the raise or they won't. Cool. No problem. Let's assume they don't, right? Because they're being pessimistic tonight. So you don't get that raise. Fine. You can quit your job and you can go work for a school bus driver the next day. Bam, you're driving school bus. I'm sure it's a noisy job, but honestly, can't be that hard. Look at how many snow days you get. Freaking Anoka Hennepin, killing me, Smalls. So you're doing that. You're making $52,000 a year. Remember, in our scenario, you were making $42,000. That's giving you more than a 25% increase in your income right there. Okay. So what I know, first of all, is that you can live off of $40,000 and you're renting for $1,500 a month, right? This is our scenario for anyone that's just tuning in. So you are paying $1,500 a month. You're living off of $42,000. You just gave yourself a $12,000 a year. This is nice round numbers. $40,000 to $52,000. You're at $12,000 more per year that you're making. That's another $1,000 per month that you can be putting into a savings account without changing anything about your lifestyle. Now, let's be honest. You could probably spend a little bit less on Starbucks and eating out and splurging and getting that energy drink at the gas station or whatever it is that you waste some money on, just like me and everybody else in this world. You could cut back on those things. Just upgrading your job, bam, number one thing. And don't forget, right out the gate, you got a $2,500, wasn't it? $2,500 sign-on bonus. So there we go. Now, I am a school bus driver, and I'm kind of hating every minute of it, but who cares, because I'm stacking $1,000 of cash in the bank every single month. Now, let's pause for a second and talk about how much cash it takes to buy a house. It takes very little. There's a program in Minnesota called Minnesota Housing, MHFA, if you want to go look it up. There's different qualifying criteria, so I'd want to get you in touch with my lenders that can really give you the ins and outs of it. But basically with that program, from what I understand, you have to have between $1,000 and $1,500 of your own cash out of pocket for the purchase, and that's it. In our market, because we're a whole lot less competitive, if you're trying to buy a house 2 years ago, you may have gotten a better interest rate, but you would have definitely not gotten help from the sellers because it was so competitive. On the flip side, about half the time right now, we are seeing sellers contributing towards the buyer's closing cost. So what does that mean? That means if a house is out there for $250,000, maybe you offer them $250,000, but then they're paying, let's say $5,000 towards your closing costs. Perfect. Or even if it is competitive, maybe you have to give them $255,000 and then they're giving you $5,000, so it's kind of the net same for them and the net same for you, but effectively you're rolling those closing costs into the mortgage balance. That doesn't bother me at all that you're paying interest on it, because that'll at least get you into the home, but you're still saving $1,000 a month, plus you got that $1,250, so by the end of the year you're gonna have almost $15,000 saved up in the bank. So if I'm in this scenario, I'm still renting, I'm saving up something like $15,000 a year without changing anything. The second thing that I would definitely be doing is paying down debt during this time. So when people call me or they comment on, YouTube videos or wherever, and they're commenting and saying like, well, I can't afford to buy a house because I can't afford the payments, almost always it's also because they have a bunch of debt payments. Okay, maybe with the one exception, I forget the guy's name, or I'd shout him out for you. Really good dude, but he was commenting on a video and he's like, I can't even afford to buy, and I'm in like the top 10% of our income earners. Well, he was saving 70% of his income. So he could afford his payments, he just didn't want to because he wanted to save 70%, whatever. Basically for everybody else besides that guy, which, I mean, kudos to him for the discipline to do that. But for basically everybody else, the vast majority of them, they've got a little credit card debt, they've got a car payment, they've got some student loans, they've got some sort of debt like that. And so the number one thing I'm going to be telling you is pay off as much of that debt as you can, or at the very least pay it down. No, I'm going to take it back. Pay it off, because that way you just get rid of the payment completely. Because just like when you take your $40,000 a year job and you raise that to a $52,000 a year job, like we were just talking, And then all of a sudden you give yourself a raise, right? Well, if you have that 52,000 and you've got whatever number, you've got $5,000 in debt payments going out every year or something like that, then all of a sudden if you get rid of that, you give yourself that other money back. So it's effectively like giving yourself a raise again because you're freeing up that income to be able to afford to make those payments for a house. And so as you get a better job and you're saving up, definitely make sure you're paying off of those debts. You're getting rid of the stupid car lease that you can't afford. Sell it off, turn it back in, do whatever you got to do to get out of that payment. Buy yourself a little dumpy car or whatever you got to do for a short-term period of time. I'm not telling you like drive a crappy car forever, but get you into something modest so that you can buy a house. Now, while we're on that topic, first of all, I'm going to push pause. If you are just tuning in, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. And the topic of discussion tonight is what would I do if I wanted to buy a house in the next 5 years, no matter what? And in my little thumbnail and the titles that you might have seen, I'm feeling kind of snarky, so I put in there a little prove me wrong that you can buy a house in the next 5 years. That's the topic of conversation. I am rewinding the clock on the Joe Carmack brain, and I'm saying if I was a young 20-something just out of college, or maybe didn't go to college, but I'm looking to buy my house, first house, and the scenario that we're playing with tonight is I have rent that's $1,500 a month, I have a bunch of debt, and I'm only making $40,000 a year, so I can't afford to save up for my down payment, and we're kind of role-playing through all of these things. So to get you caught up to speed, first of all, I want you to go put in the comments where you're watching from and what kind of questions have you heard. I'm seeing so many people that are just feeling discouraged, they're frustrated, they're burnt out, they're feeling like they can't pay for a home, with rates where they're at, with prices where they're at, with inflation, with the price of eggs and all the things that are going on in the world. And I'm just feeling a real sentiment that people are just feeling discouraged. So I hope that this live stream will be encouraging for somebody out there in the interwebs and hopefully give you a very clear roadmap to how you can absolutely buy a house in the next few years. So that's where we were at. Please, please, please don't just be a spectator. Put some comments in there for me that I can answer for you, questions you're thinking of, frustrations you're having, things that are holding you back from being able to buy a home for yourself. Whether you're in Minnesota and you hired me or not, doesn't really matter. I've got people from around the world that follow this channel, so I appreciate you. Okay, let's get back into our story here. So, like I said, we're making $40,000 a year. The number one thing, I just pulled up Indeed.com. Here, I even got it still up here for you. Indeed.com, we were playing with these jobs that make at least $45,000 a year. This one here we found I liked the best. This is a school bus driver. You can go get a $2,500 sign-on bonus, no experience required, and you can start at $25 an hour and go up from there. So, super great job. So that was our number one thing. And then you can see we were making $42,000 a year. This one pays $52,000 a year, it looks like, plus that sign-on bonus. So since we went from $40,000 to $52,000, that's a $12,000 raise. But since we can already live on $40,000, we're going to keep living off of $40,000 and stick that other $1,000 to pay off debt and to put it into a savings account specifically for the purchase of a house. So now that you're all caught up and back to speed with us, let's get back into our story. So I want to pause while we were talking about you have a nice car, you may need to sell that so that you can get rid of those debt payments, get rid of a lease payment, because that's the single most expensive way to have a vehicle. So then you're going to reclaim that part of your income, and you're going to help save up for paying off other debts or putting the cash into the bank. But we got to talk about the difference between a car and a house. Now, this is going to sound really elementary, perhaps to some that already own real estate, right? But there's so many, perhaps older people, like in their 30s, that always say, well, you should just buy a house because it's a great investment. But I think that might be a little bit underserving for younger folks that are just coming out of college, like the mid-20s, early 30s crowd. And even I've had clients up to like 60s that just don't actually understand, what does that even mean, a house is a good investment? Here's the reality. To break it down, just very basic, if no one's ever explained this to you, let me be the first. If you buy a vehicle, let's say a brand new car, you drive it off the lot, it immediately goes down in value. So the value, your net worth or the value of that asset which you own, let's say you drove it off the lot and it cost you $10,000. Okay, a new car, let's say it was $30,000 or whatever. You drive it off the lot and then it's worth $25,000, right? And then over time, let's say you own that car for 5 or 10 years, every year the value of that asset goes down. And so maybe you started it, you paid $30,000 for it, and basically when you drove it off the lot, it becomes worth $25,000 or something, because if they're going to buy a new car, they're just going to go buy a new car instead of your used one. And then it goes down in value, I don't know, let's say $2,000 a year or something like that. 10 years later, the value's gone down, 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 and then that car, honestly, is probably worth $5,000, right? So that's what a depreciating asset is called. You've spent 30,000 in 10 years from now it's worth nothing basically. Or on the flip side, with real estate, it's an asset that goes up in value. Cars go down, depreciating, homes appreciate, they go up in value. And so for a first time buyer, I'm going to tell you just start with something really modest. Can I just tell you about our first townhome? We loved it. I mean, we were so excited to just have something, right? Let me explain it. It was a foreclosure to you. The carpet was super gross. Everything was very dated. It wasn't as bad as some of them. I mean, I have to admit, it wasn't definitely the worst we had seen. But nothing had been updated since about the 80s when it was built. There was the lady next door that sold drugs. The lady on the other side was kind of a stoner. She eventually burned down her townhouse that she lived into, like across the lawn townhouse, because she fell asleep, passed out drunk in her recliner with a cigarette and lit up the whole place. Domestic disputes were going on across the street all the time. Like, it was not a super nice neighborhood by any means. It was an end unit, so that was pretty nice. We loved having an end unit. But anyways, it was a very, very modest townhome when we bought it, okay? So we had this property, we kept it, excuse me, at that time we kept it for 3 years. We put a little money into it, a little bit of sweat equity, right? I painted some things, I replaced some faucets, put some lights in, different whatever little things. And then we sold it for, I don't remember how much more. I think when we sold it, I think we walked away with like 20,000. And to us, like, what was I, probably 20, I don't know, 23 or 24, whatever, when we sold it, we were like, what? We got $20,000. I mean, that was like more money we'd ever seen in our whole life. You know what I mean? And, you know, like I literally remember the thought of like, can I deposit this whole check like into one bank account, or do I have to like, you know, put it into multiples? And I was like, that's stupid. Like, no, surely the bank can just like put it in one account, right? But like, to me at that time when I was really young and broke and in debt and all this, I was just like, oh my gosh, people just like gave me $20,000, right? That's the cool benefit of real estate. Now, you know, the market had kind of bottomed out. We had rode it up. It was that was a lot easier, quicker than you're going to have today, right? I don't want to like sugarcoat anything for you, but the fact is, it doesn't matter if it's over 2 years or 3 years or 10 years or 30 years. That asset is going to go up in value. Now, how much does it go up in value? The average historically is about 3 to 4% that homes will appreciate over time. So, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's say you're going to buy a house that's $250,000. Let me should I get my calculator back out here for you? If we're going to buy a house that's at $250 and it goes up in value, I'm going to say only 3%, and that's kind of a nice round number. So let's say you only go up in value 3% per year. Every year that you own it. Some years will go up more, some years will go down more. If you listen to the first part of the live stream, we're only up like 2.7% for the year, but the year before we were up like 11%, and the year before we were up 9%. So whatever, it'll vary, but let's use round numbers and say 3% a year is going to be $7,500 that property will go up. Now, if we, and I'm not going to do the compounding interest because I don't have time to do this, you know, on live stream, but if I take that and I times it by 5, what that means is that if you own that property and you just get something modest, it's dumpy, it's ugly, who cares, but you're going to paint it and you're going to fix it up just a tiny little bit, paying cash as you go. You buy that $250,000 townhome. In 5 years, it's going to be worth, on average, approximately $38,000 more than what you paid for it. Okay? So now you have a home that you bought for $250,000. You could sell it for $287,500 is the exact number. So then all of a sudden there's this $37,000 spread of what that home is worth. So if you wanted to, you could then go sell that house, and you'd have some closing costs, of course, to sell it. Let's see, let's times that by, let's subtract about, I'm going to subtract 7% just to have some like really round numbers. Oh, that's not right. That's 70%. What am I doing? 0.93. There we go. Okay. So, sorry, rough math. So 5 years from now, the home's worth $287,500, give or take. Then I'm going to factor in, we got about 6 or 7% total closing costs with your taxes and title fees and all that transfer stuff. You know, real estate commissions, obviously. That home you would then walk away with, after that would be, well, let me see, minus the value of it. So you would walk away in that scenario with a check for $17,375. Now, this is super rough math. I'm just doing this on the fly, right? But basically, you own that home for 5 years. You're walking away with 17 grand. Okay. The beauty of it is you could then take that 17 grand. You could go buy another property. Let's say it's only 300,000, but you're able to do that. And instead of doing basically a zero down loan, you know, let's say you do Well, you could do basically a 5% down loan. So that'll get you into a little bit better loan. You can go from maybe an FHA to a conventional loan. Maybe you'd have a lower interest rate or whatever you want to do, right? And so then you can improve and get into a nicer home at that property without it really costing you much more because you're able to put more down, right? So then your loan balance isn't very different. And then you can keep going up from there. The beauty of it, though, is, and I wasn't even doing the compound interest to really give you, and it would actually be a little bit more you'd make. But the beauty of it is that if you then do that over 10 years and 15 years and you keep owning properties, for your lifetime, then all of a sudden that really, really goes exponentially. So I'm going to actually pull up a compound interest calculator because I think you guys just really deserve to see what it's actually going to do to your net worth, and I'll even talk about this. So let me, I'll share my screen back to you. So let's say you buy your house for $250,000. I'm gonna do this just on the fly. Let's say, I'm gonna put it a little bit further out just so you can see. Let's say you do it for 15 years, roughly 4%. We'll compound that. Wouldn't that be compounded monthly? I think you could consider compounding that monthly. I'm not sure. All right, let's calculate that. So rewind. You bought a house for $250,000. It's this little, very modest, dumpy starter home that you didn't even like that much, but fine, whatever. Maybe during here you sell it and you upgrade or whatever. I'm not saying you're stuck in that home for 15 years, but let's just use that as your basis for when you're starting to own real estate to where you would be. If you own that property 15 years after you bought your first house, if you're going up about 4% per year, that home would be worth about $455,000. Okay? Now, it sounded pretty cool when I gave you a check for $17,000 after 5 years, but 15 years, this doesn't include resale costs, obviously, but as that number goes up, because it's like a hockey stick, okay? When you're only down here and you're only going up a little bit, it's not a terribly significant increase, okay? So like I was doing our numbers, this is, I did it as 4% instead of 3%, so this is gonna be a little bit higher than what I had showed you. But if that compounds at the historic average around 4%, then that property would be worth $305 in 5 years. Subtract a little bit for your closing costs, you're looking pretty good. Another 5 years, what is this at year 10? It's worth $372. Another 5 years, it's worth $455. So the value you really got to understand is that exponential hockey puck. So then 15 years down the road, you've got a couple $100,000 in the bank, right? Minus your closing costs, obviously. But you're doing really, really well. So that's the value of actually owning an asset. That's why we push for it. Versus if you continue renting, what do you have in 15 years? You have nothing, and your payments have gone up. Oh, and I forgot to completely even mention anything about the fact that you're paying off your mortgage. So the debt against your property is going down, the value is going up, and this gap is called equity, and that's how much you owe, or that's how much you own, essentially in cash once you sell the property. Okay, so let's get back to our scenario. We started at $40,000. We're up to $50,000 a year. We're saving about $1,000 a month. We're paying off of our debts. So if I'm in your scenario, after I've paid off a number of debts, the next thing that I'm going to be doing, which is super, super important, people call me. Unfortunately, I just talked to a guy. He had like a few $1,000s to his name, and he wanted to buy a house. And I'm like, we could get you into a house for that, man. You could buy a house. But then what happens when the transmission goes out on your car, or you need a new alternator, or whatever happens? The fact of the matter is, if anything happens and you don't have an emergency fund, you're kind of just hosed. And I don't want people to be hosed when life happens, because it just inevitably is going to happen. So the next thing I'm going to be telling you to do is to get an emergency fund. I want a very solid emergency fund. I don't know that I'm going to claim that I'm qualified enough to tell you how much money you need to have in the bank. Dave Ramsey, who can be very polarizing, but he recommends 3 to 6 months of your income in an emergency fund. I think that's a great benchmark. As struggling as frustrating as a lot of people might be to hear it, I think pushing for 6 months is a really, really good idea, especially for a younger buyer, because you're not making as much money, but your expenses are kind of the same in some ways. And so I'm going to tell you to have more towards 6 months of your income in the bank as an emergency fund, in addition to any money that you're putting down. Now, since we're talking about Dave Ramsey, let's talk about one thing that I will disagree with him on a little bit. I 100% understand why Dave Ramsey says that, and I think he's changed his tune. So if somebody in the comments, let me know. I think Dave Ramsey's actually changed his tune for first-time buyers, putting 20% down. But he had previously said you have to put 20% down to buy your first house. It's not a fact that you have to. It's just his recommendation because he's a financial guru kind of guy. I'm not worried about you putting 20% down. Okay. I know that it would be safer for you to, because then if, you lost your income or the economy really collapsed or something, really extreme happened, then you would be even better off. I'm more inclined myself to feel more comfortable taking a little bit more chances. And I'll tell you, I don't think you need to be that conservative to have 20% down, especially on a, $200,000 house. That's a lot of money, especially for a 20-something-year-old. So how much do you put down? Really, I think it's between you and your lender, and I'm more interested in how comfortable are you with your payment, because sometimes lenders will approve you for $3,000 a month, and you're like, I'm good with like $2,000 a month, So you do not want to push that monthly payment. That's where you're going to really get yourself stuck and in a bind. So make sure you stay a little bit more conservative on how much your monthly payment is going to be. Here's what you need to understand. If you are less than 20% down, your payment doesn't change very much. So if you go from 8% down to 9% down, it literally does nothing on your payment. I mean, it's like a few bucks a month. So I would not stress about getting to that. There are certain benchmarks that do, however, make a big difference. If you get to 20% down, you avoid paying private mortgage insurance. It's basically insurance for the bank, foreclosure insurance. So if they have to foreclose on you, they can make their money back. It doesn't help you at all. So if you can get to 20%, cool, great, go for that. That'll probably save you a few $100 a month on your payment. Anything less than 20%, on the vast majority of loans, you're going to be paying mortgage insurance. Talk to a lender, because there are a few ones that you don't have to. You can pay a higher interest rate with no mortgage insurance, and some are good, some are bad. But basically what I'm telling you is, for the majority of loan programs, if you're under 20%, you're going to be paying mortgage insurance, and it does not change your payment much if you go from 5% to 6% down payment or 10% to 11% down payment, right? I just want you to do what you feel comfortable with, so you have a little bit of equity in there, so that as your home's value ebbs and flows, if all of a sudden you need to sell and your value is down, you'd still be able to get out from under it because you got that equity buffer starting. So that's my 2 cents on it. If you can buy a home with, like I said, there's a down payment assistance program that I believe is either $1,000 or $1,500 total cash out of your pocket as the buyer to buy the property. That's incredibly low. I've not heard great things about the other terms about the loan, so talk to one of my loan officers and they can advise you on which one's better or worse. But then there's also kind of standard loan programs that are either 1%, 3%, 5% down payments. So it's a really low amount. So back to our real life scenario that's imaginary of me buying a house. If I'm going for a $250,000 house, and let's say I don't like the 1% down program, so I'm going to go with 3%. I'm just making this up. That would be about $7,500 that you would be spending towards your down payment. Now, misnomer is that down payment is the only cost there is. There is also your inspections and other closing costs for the property. Typically, that's going to be in the lower brackets. That's going to be more towards 4% of your closing costs. We can get a decent amount of those paid by the seller in today's market, a good amount of the time. So for the sake of discussion, I'm going to kind of assume that we can get some or all of that other $7,500 paid for by the sellers. Okay. But in any case, let's say there's $7,500 for your closing costs, $7,500 for your down payment. Put them together, you got about $15,000 total cash to purchase that home. So to our scenario, you went from $40,000 a year to $52,000 a year. You're putting $1,000 in the bank, and you're paying off some debt payments. With that should take you about 18 months or so. That you will then have up $15,000 for those closing costs. Let's say maybe you need another 6 months or a year to get to where you've got your emergency fund that's also in a really healthy spot. Let's say a year, probably realistically. So then if you've got $15,000 plus about 6 months of your income and expenses saved up, then by that standard, you should take about 2 years to 2.5 years to be able to purchase a home. Now, that's not nearly as fast as a lot of people would like it to be. They just want to buy a house right now because they're impatient. I get it. That's fine. But I think you need to pump the brakes a tiny bit and just say, okay, where's the roadmap? Let's call it a 3-year plan, just to use a round number and make it like really legit, because let's say something happens, you can't save up that much, whatever. Let's say it's a 3-year plan from now. If you look at that compound interest, it's not going to change that significantly. I mean, the end of the hockey stick is the biggest, obviously, so start as soon as you can. But for you, it's going to be a whole lot better if you do not try and rush into buying a house right now just because you're impatient, but actually get your finances in order, get your income up, get a bunch of debts paid down, get some cash in the bank, get an emergency fund saved up, so that when you buy, you're really ready and you're good to go for buying a house. and you have your finances under you. That's what I think is so incredibly important, especially for my younger buyers, man. They call and they just want to like rush into buying a house right now because it just sounds fun, right? I love real estate, but I'm going to be an agent that's much more inclined to tell you, pump the brakes a little bit, get your other finances where they need to be, and then we'll talk about buying a house when the time's really ready. Okay, so that's my 2 cents. I want to know what you guys think in the chat. Does this seem realistic? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's not possible? Do you think I'm out of my mind? Tell me why my plan wouldn't work. I'm like, dying for somebody to argue with me on why a person could not buy a house 5 years from today. This was just one scenario that we ran. If you're just tuning in, we just wrapped up finishing kind of a whole storyboard of what would I do if I, Joe Schmo Carmack, wanted to buy a house in my early mid 20s. Very entry-level job, very modest rent that I'm paying, and I'm trying to get out of the rental and do a number of things. So if you missed it, you're going to have to go see the replay because I'm not going through back all of it again. But for those that were here, I would love to see what you think. What do you, can you relate? Can you not relate? Does it sound realistic? Does it sound crazy? Tell me why the plan would not work. So that's what I want to know. And you guys are exceptionally quiet in the comments tonight. I do not know what's going on. Is a Tuesday night like too early in the week for you guys? Are y'all going to bed early on me because you got to go to work tomorrow? I have no idea, but maybe we'll do them back on the weekends again next time. And I'm not seeing, I got nothing. Nobody wants to debate me. Did I just solve the world's problems right here as far as real estate and finances goes? It's just bada bing, bada boom tonight, I guess. I have no idea. In any case, my name is Joe Carmack. I presume you know that since we're on the channel together. I have Living in Minnesota as my YouTube channel. So if you're watching me on Facebook, you can definitely go subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do a ton of in-depth market updates there. I'm not great at sharing them on Facebook for some reason, but we are on all the social platforms as well. In a second, I'll show you my handle, and you can go grab my Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you want to do, and connect with me on all those socials. I would love to be a resource for you. I'm also going to, give me just a second, I'm going to drop in the chat for you. I'm going to give you my link tree. It is called... Oh, is this not letting me? It doesn't want to let me drop it in the chat here. Hold on a second. I'll do it right here for you. Oh, I don't know. Can I do it? Sorry, I'm trying to do it on the fly. I don't think I can drop it in the chat for you. I'll have to get more technical and figure out how to do that. But in any case, you can go find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever, and you can find my link to my bio. You can download my buyer's guide from joecarmack.com, which is a pretty sweet resource. And if you want to sit down for a consult, man, I love to just coach people through this stuff. I hope you can understand I'm not going to push you into buying a house or anything else, but I love to help people kind of brainstorm their options and figure out what's best for them. So without further ado, you guys are so quiet in the chat, so I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you guys that'll watch the replay of this afterwards, which is where most of the viewers come from. And I'm here for you, whatever you guys need. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great night.